Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to program this little Horizon controller. Now before we get too much further, I just wanted to say thank you very much for stopping in and taking a look at another one of my videos, and I really hope that this benefits you in some way. Now with that out of the way, let's get to it. What you see in front of you here is Losi's Mini B, and I want to give a special thanks to my wife. This is actually her model. We're borrowing this from her at the moment, but we're not going to be focusing so much on the car as we are in the controller. This little Horizon controller, which is featured in all of the Losi mini cars, as well as the Dromida vehicles, and now the new Losi touring car, that 1969 Camaro that I showed you earlier in my channel. So I figured maybe I'll give you a how-to on how this radio actually functions. So the first thing is that the batteries are located in the handle of this model, and that the access for those batteries is located between the handle and the top of the controller. There's a little button that's here. Push the button in and pull the handle out. Your batteries are located inside of this little door here. Now when you reinstall this, it is very easy to get this reinstalled upside down. So if you do flip it over in this direction, this will install this way, but the button that's located here is not going to clasp properly, and the controller will not power on. So those will be things that you'll see as an error. Putting this back together in the correct direction, the button does latch, as well as the controller now powers on. Looking at the top of the controller here, you can see there are buttons for a third channel, a servo reverse switch, your steering trim, your throttle trim, and your on-off switch. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the steering trim or the throttle trim in a controller, if your vehicle is veering slightly to one side or the other, you'll use your steering trim to correct that. So if we press the steering trim button, this will start to push the vehicle in one side or the other. Now, finding the center of your steering trim is going to be noted by two beeps. So if we push the steering trim up, those two beeps are telling you that that has found its center. This works the same way with the throttle as well. So that is indicating that it's found the center. So if you're resetting your controller, this will kind of be your first steps. To reverse the steering direction in this model, you'll simply turn your steering and hold this reverse button. Those two beeps are indicating that it has reversed that steering. If we want to put it back, we'll turn it again, hold the button, and that will reverse the steering of this model. You can do the same by holding the throttle and holding this reverse button. There is a hidden adjustment in the controller, and that is holding one of the channels while operating its trim button. So if we were to hold this steering in one direction and operate the steering trim, this would adjust the endpoint adjustment for that steering. The same thing works with the throttle, so you could hold the throttle down here and then use your throttle trim to adjust the throttle range in the controller. This might be beneficial if you have a new driver and you wanted to slow the model down for him. All right, so let's put our new skills to the test here. So if you look at the buggy, it is now powered on. You can see that we have steering, but you'll notice that the vehicle is veering to one side, and I haven't put any input in the controller. So we'll come to our steering trim and hold this button down, and you'll notice that the steering will begin centering. So that's the center of the controller. But if you look closely, that steering is still not centered. This is the reason why we have steering trim adjustments. So we'll just continue adjusting until it's straight. And that's pretty close as far as the steering. Now you will want to drive this model and see if that is straight and adjust accordingly. Now I want to show you why the endpoint adjustment is important in this controller, and that is because if somebody managed to get in and adjust the endpoint, you'll notice that there is no steering in this model anymore. So the endpoint adjustment has been played with here, and you might think something is broken when in fact it's actually a very simple adjustment. So if we give steering input on the controller and start to inch up on our steering trim, that will give us more throw and fix our problem. Now you can see from the vast range of adjustment that you have in this model that you can adjust things very precisely, and you should be doing exactly that. So what's going to happen is that with this adjusted all the way up, when we steer and start to let go of our steering, you see our steering doesn't immediately respond to the input to turn back. That's because the endpoint adjustment is adjusted too high. So I'm going to adjust that down so that we can protect the servo better by having it properly adjusted. Okay, so now we've reached this threshold now, where as we adjust, it's going to start to turn that steering. So we want to adjust to the maximum range for the car. I'm just checking, backing off a little. You can see the steering is immediately responding to my input to come back, so that is properly adjusted. You can do the same thing with the throttle as well, so giving it You can do the same thing with the throttle as well, but it's very important to power off your model so that your vehicle doesn't drive out of control as soon as you start to adjust it. Now we can also adjust the throttle range in this model for the beginner level driver. This can be beneficial to keep your vehicle from getting damaged. Now this is very simple to do, but we do want to prop up our vehicle. So you can see I have a little stand underneath here. And this stand is actually my charger for my GoPro, but this is convenient size for this model. Now this is a very simple adjustment. So we will pull the throttle and start to adjust the throttle range down with our throttle trim here. And you'll notice the vehicle start to slow down as we start to adjust it. Now, of course, adjusting all the way down with our throttle adjustment leaves us without a throttle. So that's an important thing to note. You can just hold the throttle and adjust it back up to the speed that you prefer. So in this event, if you wanted the vehicle to go this fast, that would be your adjustment. Now the last adjustment feature is the servo reversing switch. So we will give steering to the left and your vehicle will turn to the left. Hold the reverse button. Now when we steer to the left, the vehicle turns right. Now this is very common that when you reverse the direction of a servo, the vehicle will go off trim. So you see it's off trim here. This will do the same thing with your throttle, so be very careful when you flip that switch that your vehicle doesn't run out of control. Reversing it back to the original position, hold the steering. You can hold it in any direction, by the way. Press and hold the button, and that will fix the direction of the steering. Well guys, as we wrap up this video, I hope you can see how easy it is to program this little Horizon controller. And if you benefited from this video in any way, please consider giving me a thumbs up, a subscription, and don't forget to hit that bell. I do mention this in all of my videos. If you're not hitting that bell, you're not getting notified when the new content goes up. So go back and do that for all of your subscriptions. Well, that'll wrap it up for this one, and I hope to see you in the next one.